tape around his body.
Fatality. Scorpion wins. Flawless victory.
Alright, hello, and welcome back to Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kev. This is your Week 9 review. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. I'm excited for another pod, another week of football, and ready for some good discussion.
Yeah, ready to get into it. It's definitely going to be an interesting week. We get 1 week closer to the playoffs, and there's no better time to dive in than the present. So let's go ahead and get it started here. As we take a look at the scoreboard, and we notice that in Week 9, we've got my matchup first. It was an interesting one to start and quickly got out of hand for Eli. I take the dub here. I put up the highest score on the week, 163.8 to 98.9. Coach Diggs and the fellas falls to 0-9, one away from tying the all-time losing streak. Currently in 12th place, and I move up to 4-5, a much-needed win for me. I move up to 8th place, get a lot of points back in those total points for category against a lot of guys that I'm competing with. And let's dive into the team. Looking at mine first, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow did excellent this week, 5 touchdowns. He had a really bad interception that similar to the one against the Eagles where it was tipped into the guy's hand. I don't think it should have been an interception, but great play by the defense regardless. He still puts up 37. Jamar Chase only with 11 here, but the stack still combines for 48, which I'm totally happy with on any given week. Devon Achane and Ramondre Stevenson, my 2 running backs, come back to full form, combining for 54. Devontae Smith puts up a great 18.7 against Jacksonville, catches that late fourth quarter touchdown, one-handed catch, barely taps both toes. It was an incredible catch. And then I streamed Taysom Hill because we had Pat Freiermuth on the bye and Dallas Goedert's still injured. And he puts up his highest score of the season, 16 points for me. It was awesome to see. I knew they were going against Carolina, and I did have Jonnu Smith at one point, and I ended up dropping him the day before to pick up Taysom Hill, and I went with the right decision. Jalen Waddle puts up 7.6. It was over 10, and then on the last play of the game, a hook and ladder, he took a 20-yard loss and ended up getting only 7.6. And then Tank Dell with a great 18.6. He's really showing out with Diggs being gone and Nico Collins being out still. And then as we look at Eli's side, it honestly didn't seem like a horrible score for him so far. Obviously, your flex 1 and 2 combining for about 10 is not what you want, but everybody else did pretty good. Keenan Allen, 7.6. The other low light is still underperforming, but hoping to get involved with that offense. Dak Prescott, Kareem Hunt, and James Conner all between 14 and 18, and Jacoby Myers for that fact, and Jake Ferguson. But all in all, combines for less than 100 points and loses to me by 65. So,
Yeah, good win here for you. Obviously put up a big crooked number at the top of the week, like you said, and gotta go a long way for the tiebreaker. So congrats on the win. And we move forward. Hopefully Eli, he's struggling to find that win as he loses another one here, unfortunately. He really can't catch a break with his opponent scoring a lot of points, but it is what it is.
I mean, he's getting a bad beat on both ends. Low, like one of the lowest points for, if not the lowest still, and then the highest points against by a long shot. And
yeah, it's an absolute double whammy for sure. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to win games. I mean, you're not scoring a ton, and also your opponents are scoring the weekly high every single week. It's pretty rough. But next game here, Riley Reed option, bacon switch. Riley Reed option wins this one by 3, 86 to 83. This is a nightmare game. To the two lowest scores on the week
from the two highest ranked teams at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty unreal.
It was 1 and 2,
fighting it out for the win and the beer chug. I think the spotlight I just kind of want to touch on is Xavier Worthy with a -1 points, and he played the entire game. So it's pretty incredible to see that.
I mean,
but
that's
then just kind
of, dude.
Yeah, pretty insane. I don't think I've ever seen a -1 from a guy that didn't get hurt, except for maybe a quarterback. But that's pretty impressive. But then just kind of some just some average games from some guys and some underperformance from some other guys, and ends up at 86, but it's enough to get the job done because Noah's team cannot get it done. He benches Baker, which would have given him the win for Bo Nix. I guess I get the play, though, because of the Kansas City matchup. So I do get it, but Baker's been so good this season. I know he's definitely probably kicking himself for that decision. And Puka got ejected in the game, so he only gets 2. And then, of course, he's just down several guys to injury. His entire squad is hurt. Zach Moss is now droppable. He's out for the season, and yeah, kind of rough for Noah. He's pretty beat up, but I know he made a trade today. He's got hopefully some guys coming back from injury pretty soon. At least Nico Collins and maybe Mike Evans as well. So, and then of course now T.J. Hockenson back from his injury, first game back, not doing well, but fresh off a pretty brutal knee injury. Should be more involved going forward, but. Good win for Tal, I guess. I mean, he won, so I know he'll take that, of course. And with the win, he'll move to 7-2. I know with the loss, he'll move to 6-3. Both guys still comfortably in the playoffs. And yeah, this game was a stinker, but you know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, not a good game from either guy, and you're really happy to get the win if you're either one of them. Tal gets the win, moves to 7-2, stays in first place. And his roster looks good. He's winning the games that you need to win. Noah, unfortunately, I have to touch on this. The ugly curse rears its head again. You lose a game because you start the wrong quarterback. If you had made the right decision and started Baker, who was quarterback 2 at the time, over Bo Nix, you would have gotten the dub. Obviously, you've got a 7-point differential there, and you only end up losing by 3. We were talking about it. Noah and I went and played a round of disc golf that morning before the games, and he said, you know what, I kind of think I need a spark. I don't think Baker's going to do that well against Kansas City. Who do I stream over him? And we talked it through, and he ended up going with Bo Nix, and maybe the right decision out of all the streaming options, but maybe the wrong decision to choose a streamer in the first place. I think he's going to roll with Baker Mayfield for the rest of the season. This was hopefully a learning moment for Noah, and he moves forward with his still quality roster, 6-3, somehow in 5th place. We have 5 guys at 6-3 or better, which is almost insane. But, there's plenty of wins to be had out there. And speaking of another good win and another team that moves to 6-3, we have Tush Push Kush taking the dub over Jefferson Starship here, 145 to 106. Wyatt moves up to 6-3 into 3rd place, and Bennett falls to 3-6 in 11th place. If we take a look here at the games, the players specifically, on Bennett's side, C.J. Stroud, another underperformance at 11.5. He really is kind of falling off from where he was last year as a rookie. I expect him to be good in the long term, but this season you really don't know what to expect. Nick Chubb, a disappointing 4.5 points. James Cook, kind of disappointing 12. And then David Njoku underperforms with only 8. Everybody else does pretty well. Jettas with 22, Malik Neighbors with 15, Darnell Mooney with 20 is a real highlight, and then Xavier Legette puts up over projected. And it's a decent score. I mean, it's well under what you were projected, but when you have a couple of key guys underperform, that's what happens. And wasn't enough to get it done. Wyatt here made a strong push against me before I had, my last guy play, trying to battle me out for the high score of the week. And, Jalen Hurts puts up 33. A.J. Brown only 5.6, kind of disappointing, but it's fine when Jalen Hurts puts up 30+. Cortland Sutton with 25 points, got a passing touchdown in this game. 2 Bo Nix, notably. Kate Otten puts up 22 from Travis Kelce as well with the double tight end play. It's working out for Wyatt at the moment, but you got to imagine he's looking to move away from that. And then just some great scores all around. And 145 is an incredible number. You'll take that every day of the week, and you'll take this win every day of the week too.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats to Wyatt on the win, and then it joins me down at the 3-6 threshold of hell. And welcome to it, Bennett. I'm happy to be there with you. Not really. I'm happy I'm not alone. But yeah, we'll go next game here. Maybe one Milky, and they cloned Tyrone. High scoring game for they cloned Tyrone and Al, losing the game 139 to 162. Charlie with the second highest score of the week, almost gets his 5th or 4th on the season.
Yeah, it would have been his 4th, I believe. Yeah, only by 1 point I beat him. I almost spoke it out of existence for myself.
Yeah, only by 1 point. He gets several really big games from, of course, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen, your normal contributors, and then just consistency all the way down, and then the massive game from JSN. In the absence of DK Metcalf, he stepped up in an overtime loss, the Rams. That was actually a really good football game, and he absolutely balled out. He was looking like he did in that Utah game back in college. But yeah, he balled out today. He balled out, gets 37, and gives Charlie the win, solidifies the win. For Al, big game from Lamar, big game from Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers really stepped up lately. And then a huge game from Chase Brown in the absence of Zach Moss, but the rest of his team can't really show up. Or Terry with a good projection game, but the rest of the guys kind of fall a little bit short, unable to get it done. Really good week, 139. Nothing really to be disappointed about that. It's just kind of a bad beat for Al, and he takes the L. Unfortunately, that's how it goes, and he'll fall to 4-5, and Charlie will move to 6-3, and now second back up, trying to reclaim his throne. Good win for Charlie here.
Yeah, really, really good for Charlie to right the ship. He had lost 3 of his last 4 before this week, and if he had lost this one, which he was heavily projected to early on in this matchup. I remember watching it, and Al, it looked like had it in the bag. He was projected to put up by about midday Sunday 140, and that's what he ended up putting up. But Charlie, with the JSN game, I mean, just nothing that you could have expected, and unfortunately Al would have beat like 7 or 8 other teams in the league and loses here to Charlie.
Yeah, it's just a bad beat there.
Moving forward, though, we have Swifties for Smirnoff, who took on Phoenix Rising. Ended up losing by 11 points, 120 to 131. Sam falls to 5-4 in 6th place now, and Henry moves up to 4-5 in 9th. A much-needed win for Henry to avoid falling to 3-6, that kind of death trap that we've talked about for the past couple of weeks, and really good here. As we look at the rosters, we'll take a look at Sam's side first. Patrick Mahomes and Garrett Wilson both with 30. I mean, that's great. When you have 2 guys put up 60 points, you really expect to win the week. And 120 overall isn't a bad score, but some key underperformances here really led Sam to the loss. You've got Michael Pittman putting up 2.4, Sam Laporta putting up 4.8, and then Chris Olave, who went out with the injury and is likely going to miss significant time. Second concussion of the year, likely. I mean, brutal hit, absolutely killer hit. Derek Carr should be thrown in prison for that hospital pass, not his brother, David Carr. But But yeah, those three guys underperforming is really what led to Sam's loss. If they had put up what they were projected to, he would have won this game. And yeah, I mean, some decent scores all around on the rest of his roster. And Rico Dowdle really shines, but not enough to get it done. As we look at Henry's team, he goes with Kirk Cousins, obviously, with Brock Purdy on bye, Jordan Mason on bye, George Pickens on bye, and Jaylen Warren on bye. Really huge bye week here for Henry, and he's able to get out with the win. Kirk Cousins puts up 23, Devontae Adams with 22, and Quentin Johnston with 22 highlight the roster. And then some good scores all around with Kenneth Walker putting up 13, Trey McBride putting up 13, Jaden Reed putting up 16, and Tyreek Hill with 12. And then a little underperformance from JT, but 131 is nothing to shy away from, and you're very happy to get this win.
Yeah, good win for Henry. He was 3-5, needed the win, gets the win despite all the buys, and Sam has slipped a little bit in recent weeks, but he at least showing some promise, I guess, with the 120. But yeah, we'll move on to, and of course, like you said, the bad beats too with the Olave injury sucks. But final game of the week, it's my game against Alex. 118-107. I take the L. The quarterback duel in this was terrible. Kyler put up 4 points. The game was a blowout against Chicago. Kind of unlucky how ass Chicago played, and Kyler just didn't really need to do anything. And his fantasy performance, felt that. So Jordan Love, on the other hand, just lost to Detroit. That team is really, really good at football, and it seems that Jordan Love was not up for the task in a rainy day in Green Bay, and only puts up 9. But other than that, and then of course, the DJ Moore, I mentioned how bad Chicago was. He doesn't show up, and then Zach Ertz with George Kittle on the bye, he streams Zach Ertz and only gets a point. But despite that, Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, and Chuba, going with the name, RB University, all showing up with huge games to give them the 118, which is a very beatable score. I just wasn't able to do it. Really bad week for the guys in the Blue Medical tent. I got kind of shit on because Najee was on a bye, and then Brian Robinson was kind of a last-minute scratch, and I didn't really have any good streaming options on the waivers, especially with Jamison Williams still on his suspension as well. So I kind of tweaked and just picked up Brian Robinson's backup, or I guess it'd be Austin Eckler's backup in that case. Jeremy McNichols, he only put up 2, which sucked. Bucky Irving in a bad matchup, only 6, and then with the Kyler bad game too, I kind of got screwed. But it was okay. Drake London also got hurt after scoring a touchdown, which was very unfortunate. I immediately taunted Alex on the Drake London touchdown, and then he did not return to the game with an injury following that. So that was exciting.
Drake London,
Kamara 27.
He didn't like his coach putting up that amount of disrespect on the enemy team, and he just had to take a knee for the rest of this matchup.
Yeah, and I could pretty much guarantee you that if he didn't get hurt, I win this game. He makes up for that 11 points. That Dallas, defense is cheese. Darnell Mooney went off. It was setting up to be such a good game for him, and then first
that's why you don't do that, Kevin.
For Drake.
Dishonorable.
Yeah, I guess that's why you don't top me mid game. Alex made sure to top me for every single touchdown on Monday night when Bucky was done. But with the loss, I'll move to 3-6 and 10th. Kind of on the fringe of losing my season here. It'll be a big turnaround. And then Alex with the win will be 6-3, and now in 4th. So credit to Alex for getting a win and taking me down.
Yeah, and you covered it really well. You put up 107 with this amount of underperformance and injuries, and you've got to be fairly happy with it. But like you said, Kyler Murray, big underperformance, and then the Jeremy McNichols stream didn't work out too well. But this game did come down to the wire. It was Bucky Irving needed 17 points for you to get the dub coming into it at the end, and he wasn't able to get there against the Chiefs. It's a tough matchup, and he's the running back too. So, but
I knew I was doomed. I had no hope going into Monday. It was over. I did get I got a sliver of hope when the Rams went into overtime. I was like, Cooper Kupp can maybe come out and get a couple more. Yeah. And he was on the tail of a really big game, but he did not catch a pass in overtime, and that pretty much solidified it for me.
Yeah. But either way, we'll move on here to Week 10. My matchup here is at the top. We've got Slim Reaper's Revenge taking on Jefferson Starship. Current projection is a little lopsided because of two guys that are on bye. It's 119 to 96. But if we click down here and look at the bench, Bennett will slot in Rashad White over Nick Chubb. And then he will likely pick up a tight end who on waivers with Tucker Kraft and David Njoku on bye. He'll likely get an additional 8 points projection there. So this game will end up being about a 116 to 119 matchup projection. Fairly close. And I am a little bit concerned. This is an opportunity for Bennett to really right the ship on his season, falling to 3-6 last week. He needs this win to even have a sliver of playoff eligibility and hope left alive. And I'm nervous. I need to win this one and get back to even and really start the what could be of what could be of what could be a comeback to make the playoffs. And I need it. I don't have anybody on bye this week. I don't have really anybody injured. I need everybody to perform. And if we look at the matchup specifically, I'm very excited about a couple of key things here. We've got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday night. I am very excited for this matchup. The Baltimore Ravens have been like the 31st ranked passing defense all season. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have the opportunity to light them up here. And then Devontae Smith against Dallas. Dallas without Dak Prescott and maybe without CeeDee Lamb, depending on his injury. We'll talk about that later. I think that the Eagles could blow out the Cowboys here, and Devontae Smith could do exactly what he did last week and put up 20-plus for me. Tank Dell against Detroit. Their secondary has also been really bad so far this year, and without Stephon Diggs and maybe without Nico Collins, that they may bring him back this week, but even still, he'll be getting plenty of target share. Those are four guys that I'm really hoping can carry me into a win here. And as we look at the other side of the ball for Bennett, we've got C.J. Stroud, who's been consistently underperforming his projection this year. He's currently quarterback 16, and he's going up against Detroit. So I'm hoping that Tank Dell will get a lot of that action and counteract any C.J. Stroud points that pop up. We've got Justin Jefferson against Jacksonville, which does scare me because Jacksonville is also a very bad defense, and the Vikings could turn this one into a shootout where Jettas just scores a ton of points. However, I think because Jacksonville's defense is so bad, if they get out to a 2-3 possession lead in the first half, they're going to turn to Aaron Jones and end up running the ball a lot. So I'm hoping that's the game script. Another scary receiver matchup, we've got Malik Neighbors against Carolina. We've said it all year, Kevin, if you can't do it against Carolina, you just can't do it in the NFL. Malik Neighbors has shown this season he can definitely do it, and that's a matchup I'm worried about. And then Darnell Mooney's been really overperforming this year. Tough matchup, rivalry against the Saints, and then Xavier Legette against the Giants. I've talked about the guys that I'm most worried about and the guys on my team that I'm, most hopeful for, but what do you think?
Yeah, a couple things to monitor. Darnell Mooney, we're going to look at the action of Drake London, whether or not he's playing. He obviously didn't finish the game on Sunday. If he does not play this coming week, which, I really hope he does considering he's on my team.
I hope he does
but,
too, so I'm rooting for
he's still
you.
Questionable. He's got some sort of hip injury, but if he does not play, Darnell Mooney will take a big step up. And no more Marshawn Lattimore as of this morning for the New Orleans Saints. So I don't really know a ton about their secondary outside of Lattimore, but I can't imagine that their secondary will be very solid after his absence.
Especially
and then I
the
also
team is 2-7.
Yeah, for sure. And then I also want to highlight Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, like you mentioned, against Baltimore. I think it's a fantastic matchup. That's a team that can score a lot of points, and that's a team that you have to throw on in order to keep up. So it should be big things for them. We'll see if T. Higgins plays. Jamar is actually better with T. Higgins.
Yes.
If you look at statistics. So, but still, T. Higgins is another guy to monitor as well. But yeah, best of luck. Both guys need a win, obviously. Bennett's season is, like you said, over if he loses at this point. So.
Oh yeah.
And then yours, you just need to right the ship. But next matchup here, Tush Push Kush, Bacon Switch. Both guys sitting at 6-3. Definitely both in the playoff hunt, playoff picture for sure. Let's take a look down here. Noah has Nico Collins back slotted, so I guess he is projected to return from IR. Obviously,
He
something to
is.
still monitor, so that's not official. But definitely projected to return. We'll see if TJ Hawkinson can bounce back, coming off a really bad first game back from injury, but he's got the favorable matchup against Jacksonville. He's also got a second tight end in Hunter Henry playing against Chicago, which is kind of an unfortunate matchup.
This
And
is
then,
this is the double tight end matchup.
mhm. Noah also has two bench spots open, which means he will be making additions. So, it's obvious that it's possible that he could be making, some waiver wire plugins there. We're recording on Tuesday, so waivers haven't ran for anyone unaware. Um, and then, of course, Baker against San Francisco, kind of a rougher matchup, but Baker's been producing all season. He benched him last week. I think you're going to have to just play him despite the matchup. I mean, he's QB2. He's been balling out. He looks really good regardless of Mike Evans being injured. And, maybe Mike Evans returns this. He's got Mike Evans on IR, so maybe, I don't know. I guess he's projected not to return, but we'll see. On the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown in a very plus matchup. Um, I don't know, memory. So didn't A.J. Brown kind of get banged up? He's got the
He
question
did.
mark on his name.
He
Yeah, he got kind of
went
banged up.
down in that game last week with a knee injury, and ended up not playing for about a quarter and a half, and then came back in towards the end of the game. Only ended up putting up 5 points last week, but he had a scan done yesterday morning. Came back all clear, just inflammation, no tear, no strain on anything. So he is expected to play this week.
Okay. So a hobbled A.J. Brown, but still a plus matchup against Dallas. Like you said, with Devontae Smith. The other thing I worry about that game, too, though, is it could be a blowout, and then they will Saquon Barkley that thing to
Yes.
the end. But at the same time, there's going to be points at the beginning, so
And the
just gotta see
tush
what
push
happens.
is always alive.
Yeah, of course, of course. And then Aaron Jones against Jacksonville, that's a plus matchup. Tony Pollard against the Chargers, it's okay. Brian Thomas against Minnesota is really, really rough. Minnesota's defense has really stepped up this season. They look really, really good.
They've been incredible.
He's coming off kind of return. Not he's coming back from kind of a minor injury. He had a really bad week this past week. Trevor Lawrence has been really bad. Cortland Sutton against KC, kind of rough as well. I think Kate Otten, kind of the Baker Mayfield Kate Otten combo here. We'll see sort of who gets the edge there, but Kate Otten has been super, super involved
Yes.
since the Buccaneers have lost Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So we'll see if that trend continues. And then Travis Kelce there in the second flex. So this should be a good game. Noah's projected to win by 2. But yeah, I mean, best of luck to both guys. Both, trying to solidify their spots in the playoffs. I think the winner pretty much for sure is a lock to get in. Even if even the loser's okay. It's not too big of a deal. Noah's just trying to get healthy right now, and
Yes.
will take any wins that he can get, of course, while he's getting back to 100%. So it'd be nice for Wyatt to sort of catch him while he's down and take advantage of it.
Absolutely. I think you covered that perfectly. And it would be good for both guys to win. Obviously, only one can, but it's not the end of your season if you don't win, especially if you know you got a banged up roster. But we'll look here at our next matchup of the week. We have Riley Reed option, the top dog, going against they cloned Tyrone. 7-2 versus 4-5 respectively in first and seventh place. The current projections are a little lopsided because Alexander Madison is on bye. It is 102 to 133 at the moment. Tao will likely slot in Jawan Jennings or Tyler Algier, giving him an additional 8 to 10 points. So this will be somewhere in the 110 to 112 range versus 133. Obviously, huge thing to watch out for here on Al's side is the injury report, both on Lamar Jackson and Deebo Samuel.
Lamar is playing.
He's confirmed already?
Playing. Yeah, because they're playing on Thursday.
Oh, so they already released the report? Okay.
Yes, he's playing. He's playing.
Then don't have to worry about that, but Lamar kind of on, a little bit of a banged up trip these past couple of weeks. He still did great last week, but, you're hoping that doesn't work against you in this game against Cincinnati. Their secondary has also been really bad, so you would expect Zay Flowers, who's also on Al's team, to get involved as well. That stat could do very well here for him in this matchup. And then some other key guys to watch out for. Kyron Williams against Miami. Their rush defense has been about middle of the pack, but their offense has shown the inability to keep up. They did last week against Buffalo, but so far this season they've kind of struggled. So if the Rams can get out to a lead, they may be able to run it down the Dolphins' throat. Chase Brown against the Ravens. Al has 3 guys in that matchup. Going to be a big game for him to watch this Thursday night. Deebo Samuel, the injury report, will play a big part on whether or not he performs well or plays at all. And then you have a couple of other matchups, Dalton Kincaid against Indianapolis and Tyrone Tracy against the Panthers. That positive matchup for Al. Devin Singletary doesn't really look like the guy, and Tyrone Tracy still performed well after coming off injury last week. So you would expect good things. And flipping over to the other side here, Tal's team, really bad projection this week. And, looking at the matchups, he's got some tough defenses, but he's also got some fairly favorable ones. And I'm a little confused as to why he's projected so low here. Jaden Daniels projected 26. He's been great, but they're going against Pittsburgh. Joe Mixon against Detroit. Their defense has been all right, but with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson, their rush defense has kind of been lackluster in the past 5 weeks. Javonte Williams against Kansas City is kind of tough. Amon-Ra against Houston is middle of the road. You would expect him to put up about projected, if not more. And then Xavier Worthy against Denver is tough. Obviously, they have Pat Surtain, but you don't know if he's going to be against Worthy. You would imagine so, just because Worthy's the speedster, but he may get matched up against D-Hop as well after his performance last week. Kyle Pitts in the rivalry game against New Orleans. You know what Kyle Pitts is. He's the definition of boom or bust. This season he is tied in 7, so that's a good sign for Tal. But Calvin Ridley, who performed pretty good the past couple of weeks, but has been middling so far this season against the Chargers in a fairly weak defense. And then obviously you got Juwan Jennings most likely going against Tampa Bay. So interesting game to watch here. Tal is, heavily underprojected here and likely to lose and maybe stay in first place depending on the points for and the result of the other matchups. But Al is looking really good to get back to even here and put himself, even further in that playoff conversation.
Yeah, I don't have really anything to add, honestly. I think 2 things to look out for is Deebo. I think Juwan Jennings will play. Deebo, of course, is always kind of an injury scare. If he does not play, Juwan Jennings will be a lot better without Deebo, so that would be a really, really bad outlook for Al if that were to happen. And then, of course, Kyle Pitts, keep an eye on Drake London, like I mentioned earlier. He'll have to really step up in that Falcons game if Drake London is out. So, And I guess the other thing, too, Khalil Herbert just got signed to Cincinnati, so Chase Brown is no longer the only running back in the backfield.
Yes, that's true.
Still, he is obviously the RB1. But he did have a massive week last week without Zach Moss. Next game here is Baby Want Milky Smirnoff. Swifties for Smirnoff. Baby Want Milky projected 115. Sam projected 80. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
And he only has one guy on bye. Oh, Chris Olave.
Chris Olave. That was what I was looking at. I was like, what's going on?
I was a little shaken up.
So he's got, we'll put Rico up there, and then he's got, let's just say, Khalil Shakir and Amari Cooper just for projection purposes, which is 23 points. That'll be up to 103 or so. Still a heavy lean towards Charlie, a really low projection for Sam, but let's go ahead and break it down here. Mahomes against Denver, he's been pretty bad for fantasy. He had a really, really big week this week against the Buccaneers on Monday.
But the Bucs defense has been horrible against quarterbacks. So
and a good offense as well. So you're kind of
forced to
Bucs
throw.
are great. A very good plus matchup for pretty much anybody involved, honestly, in a Bucs game. They've been a great fantasy team this year. So we'll see if he decides to go with Mahomes or Tua, though. Tua's actually projected to score more against the Rams. And if you're just looking at matchup between Rams or Broncos, I would, of course, prefer to have my team face the Rams.
Yes.
But we'll see what Sam decides to do there. DeAndre Swift against New England. Josh Jacobs on the bye, so he's got Rico Dowdle against Philly. Rico Dowdle's actually been pretty okay. He's coming off a pretty big game. I know he scored against the Falcons. The Falcons' rush defense is also kind of mid. He's coming off a 21 point game.
Interestingly, last game Ezekiel Elliott also did not play. He was sidelined for personal.
He wasn't showing up to
interdisciplinary.
he wasn't
Yeah.
showing up to practice. Yeah, so he just skipping practices and stuff. So they suspended him basically. Um, but also no Dak. I mean that's for sure.
They're
So
gonna run.
and yeah, they're gonna have to run unless they start falling behind. Then I mean I don't know. That game could get really really ugly, in my opinion. So we'll see what Rico Dowdle can do against that. Garrett Wilson against Arizona, who low key Arizona has been stepping up lately, and we'll of course continue to monitor. What's the distribution between Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. Michael Pittman has sucked all season against Buffalo. And then Khalil Shakir and Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is still, getting acquainted with the new offense. And Khalil Shakir, they're on the same team. I've talked about it. Kind of sucks starting guys on the same team, but Sam is kind of dealing with some buys and some injury, and might not really have a ton of other great options. So it could be what he does against the Colts, who are kind of an okay matchup. So at least it's not a bad matchup. Other side of the ball, though, is Josh Allen. You'd be throwing the ball to Khalil Shakir and Amari Cooper, so they're kind of an interesting narrative there. Derrick Henry, of course, against Cincinnati. Doesn't matter the matchup. He's great. Kareem Hunt now, newly acquired from Eli. CeeDee Lamb, who's questionable with that AC joint. He went down with it kind of looked like pretty rough shoulder injury there towards the end of the Falcons game. So we'll have to monitor to see if he plays, but he's got Philadelphia. We mentioned in this game already several times. This could get ugly. Cooper Rush is throwing him the ball. Dak has sucked this season, but I would always rather have Dak throw the ball than Cooper Rush. And Dak could be on the IR. I don't think it's official yet, but I'm hearing rumors that it could be multiple weeks that he's out. So we'll see sort of what the future holds in store for CeeDee Lamb with that injury occurring.
And I would say, in my opinion, the difference between a guy like CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson showed you this year. Doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball, he's going to put up 20 points a week. I think CD without Dak is going to be a much worse picture versus Jettas without Kirk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. Obviously Sam Darnold's been getting the job done. Darnold is definitely also better than Cooper Rush, so it's kind of a double whammy there.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah, no, I see your point you're saying. I mean, Justin Jefferson is just unreal. But then riding out the team here is Austin Eckler. I hope Brian Robinson's back this week. He's coming off a big week, though. Eckler looks really good. He looks really good when he is the only back. He's had to do it twice now, and he has looked great in both those games. Then finally, Ray McLeod. I've already mentioned this several times about Atlanta, but just kind of monitor Drake London's health. I do think he's going to play, but just in case he doesn't, Ray McLeod would also take a step up. And that's because Tyler Lockett and JSN are both on buys, so probably will have to kind of navigate that. And none of his other guys are really startable, honestly. Mark Andrews maybe if he decides to go that direction, but that's something he can figure out. But both guys currently sitting in the playoff picture. Sam kind of needs to win, though. His points for isn't really the best, so he won't really own any tiebreakers over any of the other guys in the playoff hunt. So he does kind of need to win this game. Falling to 5-5, he'd still be in the playoff picture, I think, depending on how things shake out. But yeah, he's slipped a little bit in recent weeks, so he needs to find a win here this week. And then Charlie, of course, just hoping to continue coasting along.
yeah, I mean, I think you covered it really well. Sam, of course, kind of has fumbled two matchups so far this season. One with the Khalil Shakir start over Garrett Wilson, which he gave Wyatt the win. And then the second, choosing to start, I forget who he chose to start, somebody in Flex 2 who put up like 0.8, and everybody else on the roster put up enough for him to get the win. And it wasn't a crazy start-sit decision. It was in the last couple of weeks too. But either way, Sam here potentially falling back down to even after, I believe at one point being 5-2, and then 4-1 maybe. So really tough to see that kind of turn of events here. And for Charlie, he told us that we weren't going to be able to roast him this week because JSN and Tyler Lockett got him the win. But when you have two receivers on the same team, you're put in this position where you have two guys on bye who are serving as your wide receiver 2 and flex 1 at the moment. And it sucks when you're down two big performers like that. And then Charlie made the counterpoint to me that, the disadvantage of going with a stack like Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase is that you then have two guys on bye there. But the counterpoint I'll make is twofold, because the stack that I have, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are currently quarterback 4 and wide receiver 1. So when they lose their performance for a week, I think that it's more than made up for with how much they're overperforming week in, week out. Whereas you have guys like Tyler Lockett and JSN, who are wide receiver 30 and 14 respectively. Those are constant contributors to your team, but they don't do enough to make up for the games that they miss. And so missing them here, your projection is significantly lower than it has been in the recent weeks, and now you're still projected over Sam, and you could still get the win here, which is by all means, by and large, a great thing for you. But I think going with the stack move and having that bye is also easier for a different reason. It's because when you have the stack, you have 2 different positions. So I have a quarterback and a wide receiver who will be gone in the same week, whereas you have 2 wide receivers gone in the same week. And on your roster, you're more than likely going to have a fairly even distribution, and losing 2 wide receivers in 1 week is probably going to have more impact than losing 1 wide receiver and 1 quarterback, because you just have more guys on bench that you can sub in. Had to do that for you, but side note aside, we will move into our 5th matchup of week 2.
I want to throw in one more thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Christian McCaffrey could be back for Charlie this week as well.
It's true, yes.
Which would also be a very welcome addition.
Moving to our second to last matchup of the week here, we have Coach Diggs and the Fellas versus RB University. This was a pretty rough matchup. This is a pretty rough matchup to look at right now. Eli versus Alex. We have the 0-9 team currently in 12th place versus the 6-3 team in 4th place. Eli without Dak, because he is likely to hit the IR, but is already in Eli's IR slot, is only projected 86. If he picks up a quarterback off waivers who's projected around the 15 to 17 mark, he will be somewhere between 101 to 103, and still be an underdog of 24 points in this matchup. If we look here at the matchups, it doesn't get any better when you look at Eli's team. You have James Conner against the Jets, really tough defense. Monty against Houston, which is, kind of a middle-of-the-road defense, but he is in that RB committee thing where Ja gets a lot of the touches to get you into the red zone, and then Monty steals the touchdown. So if that doesn't go your way, Monty can put up a low score. Wandale against Carolina is looking to be pretty good, but with Malik Neighbors back and fully healthy, he takes the dominant share of the offense. T. Higgins against Baltimore is a really great matchup, but the issue here is that you need T. Higgins to be healthy. He did not practice on Tuesday. He was a non-participant, so we will monitor that injury report on Wednesday and then on to Thursday. But considering that he didn't play Sunday, you might have a better chance of him suiting up because he had more days to get healthy, but they're also on a short week from last week, so if he missed on Sunday, how much more likely is it that he's healthy enough 3 days later ready to play? You then have Jake Ferguson against Philly, and without Dak there, that stack value is lost, and Jake Ferguson, a lot of his value is probably decreased as well. Currently starting another tight end in the flex 1 position, Dalton Schultz, against Detroit. Their secondary's been pretty rough this year, but Dalton Schultz hasn't been that great. He's tied in 25 right now. And then lastly, you have Jalen McMillan against San Fran. He also did not play in the game against the Chiefs last week, and he also did not participate in practice today. So a couple of key injuries to monitor for Eli here, and that is probably going to be the deciding factor on whether or not he moves to 0-10 to tie the all-time loss record. And as we look at the other side of the ball on Alex's team, Russell Wilson against the Commanders, they've looked pretty good, but their offense can score, so Pittsburgh will have to throw and keep up. Breece Hall against Arizona is a pretty favorable matchup, less favorable than we thought back at the beginning of the season, but still solid. Saquon against Dallas, we've already talked about it, this could get ugly, and currently Saquon is questionable. I'm not sure what for, but maybe that...
He was kind of going off and on.
And then he got limped
several
off
times in the last game. But it did not affect his performance
No.
in the last game, I'll tell you that much. I was watching and kind of hoping he'd, maybe just take the rest of the game off. He did not, and he continued to shit on me. So, shout out to Saquon.
Yeah, and then, your wide receiver 1 and 2, it has not gotten any better for Alex over the past couple of weeks. He's still not made any trades, and he's still rocking with DJ Moore, Ladd McConkey as 1 and 2 here. Pretty good matchup for the Bears against New England, and a decent matchup for Ladd McConkey against the Titans, but, not really the guys that you want to be wide receiver 1 and 2 on your team, especially when you're 6 and 3. Definitely shows the name RB University, and Alex is continuing to ride that. However, as we look further down, George Kittle against Tampa Bay, specifically if Debo doesn't play or Juwan Jennings doesn't play, his volume could go up, especially now that he's fully healthy. And then we have J.K. Dobbins against Tennessee, which is a really good matchup, and then Chuba Hubbard against the Giants, which is pretty good as well. All in all, a pretty dominant projection for Alex, and he's going to look to win and move up to 7 and 3 and push Eli, to tie the all-time loss record.
Yeah, this could get interesting. Eli's team is continuing to be more hobbled. He's got several guys on a bye, and right on the threshold of breaking the record that we never thought could be touched. And here we are the next season with another guy threatening to set a new one. So we'll see if Eli can right the ship maybe finally, and try and take down Alex, who's been on a little bit of a run here lately.
And yeah, that'll wrap it up for this at the moment. But as we move into our final matchup here of the week, we have a special guest, our Vibe Report co-host, Henry Stevenson, head coach of the Phoenix Rising team. And we're going to look at this matchup here against my podcast co-host and my Vibe Report segment host, Phoenix Rising versus Blue Medical 10. I'll go ahead and set it up and then throw it your guys' way. As it stands right now, the projections are 121 to 114, but Kevin is down Brock Bowers and will likely slot in a different tight end that he's going to be picking up off waivers.
Buddy off the waivers.
And then we have Henry, who's currently projected 121. 4 and 5 versus 3 and 6 in 9th and 10th place, respectively. A must-win game for both of you guys here. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. I have dropped 3 straight, and I'm in need of one here, or my season is completely cooked at this point. So, I've got a couple guys finally coming off buys, are coming back, and hopefully Brian Robinson is back and healthy this week. Hopefully Drake London is healthy this week. Those are going to be the 2 guys I've really got my eyes on. It's good to get Najee back from his bye into a plus matchup against Washington. And Alvin Kamara is the guy I'm most pumped about this week against Atlanta's soft rush defense. He just had 215 scrimmage yards this past week. And he had 6 for 60 receiving. He's literally a receiver with running back upside as well. And I'm really pumped what he's going to do it against Atlanta. So hopefully he can kind of right the ship and kind of get me in the right direction there. But Kyler against the Jets is kind of rough. But gonna try and stream a tight end. Hope I can get some value there. I really messed up streaming last week, but it's going to get interesting. Jameson Williams is back from his suspension as well, so it's good to have him back. But Henry, you can take a look at your team and tell me what you're thinking going on this week.
Yeah, hey everybody, good to be here. Obviously, right now the projections are in my favor without Kevin having a tight end, but we'll see how that changes with waivers processing tomorrow. In the same vein that he's excited for Najee going against the Commanders, I'm excited for George Pickens to be there. I really don't see much issue with Mike Williams joining the squad. He's just another guy that Russell Wilson can throw it to blindly and hope that it works out. But I think George Pickens is better. So, down Kenneth Walker, down Jaden Reed this week. Obviously, Kenneth Walker hurts. Jaden Reed being on bye might, save me from another 3-point game or whatever Jaden Reed's been doing the past couple weeks. I'm expecting a bounce back from a lot of my guys. Obviously, Devontae got in the end zone for the Jets for the first time last week. That was really fun to see. It was unfortunately in garbage time when it didn't really matter, but it was still cool. And then Tyreek against the Rams should be much better than against the Bills, who the Dolphins typically struggle against the Bills. They put up a bunch of points. It didn't matter for Tyreek, of course. I think it should be a good week for my guys. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think just looking at buys, you definitely have more of a disadvantage than I do. I will be on Cedric Tillman, who
You have
of
not
note has
started.
been very. I know I
Oh,
started
you
him this
started him
past week. He
last
put up,
week. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, he put up 19. I've only had him for 2 weeks, but he is an absolute start for me now. So that is kind of a hit, but it's not the same kind of hit as losing Kenneth Walker or somebody. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
need
at least none of,
another.
none of our best players are down, I
I need
guess.
another week from Quentin Johnston. One of those like last
Yeah,
week where he
that's
went for the best game of his entire career would be
yeah,
pretty
that's one of
cool.
those names where you see him, like I see him here, and I have no fear, of course, because he's Quentin Johnston. But at the same time, it's like he is coming off of a massive game, so I hope it's kind of like take a step back towards reality. But he is in kind of a plus matchup against Tennessee, so we'll see if he can continue that hot hand that he's got right now.
Yeah, and it's certainly shaping up to be an interesting one. This may get my matchup of the week tag purely because I think this has the most direct playoff implications. Kevin, if you lose this one, you're all but eliminated. You would have to go on a 4-win streak to end the season in order to even have a chance, and you'd have to score a lot of points in order to get that tiebreaker at the same time. And then, Henry, if you lose, you fall to 4-6, and Kevin goes up to 4-6. Not the end of the world, but you can really only afford one loss throughout the rest of the 4 weeks in order to even have a chance to make playoff eligibility. So I think this is going to get my mark here. Henry suffering a lot of buys and Kevin kind of suffering a lot of injuries, but whose team is more built around that is what we'll see.
Yeah, I mean I just broke a 4 week loss streak. Kevin's on a 3 week loss streak, so some big slides going on here. Hoping that we can
Yeah,
bounce back into playoff standings.
it is rough being down Bowers. I'll say that much because he's the type of tight end where you do not carry a tight end too. I kind of saw in my matchup against Alex this past week. He didn't. He was down Kittle. He only got 1 point from his replacement tight end. So I'm gonna have to navigate and make a smart decision somewhere. So hopefully I can do it. But definitely sucks being down Brock Bowers in such a rough position.
Absolutely. I
Hard to
mean,
find hard to find good replacements there. That's for sure.
in a matchup that you have to win, it really does suck to be down a key guy like that, one that you may have got a little steal on in your trade. But as it goes,
Perhaps.
that'll be the end of our Week 10 matchups here, and we'll move into the injury report. We haven't prepared our usual quick hits, but I've got a couple that I'm looking at here, and you guys can chime in anytime that you feel fit. But Dak Prescott, one of the most notable ones. He goes down with that hamstring injury. He's expected to miss some time, potentially hitting the IR. The projection is somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks at the moment, but depending on the scans and the medical evaluation he gets, he may miss significant time, which would be a huge blow for Eli.
Jerry Jones said on a podcast today that he was likely to hit the IR. So
Yeah,
I mentioned that earlier as well.
that's tough. Next on the list, we have 2 receivers back to back, and I'll hit the one that isn't owned by a guy in this call here. Chris Olave takes the massive hit on that suicide pass. I talked about it earlier. He's probably going to miss a considerable amount of time. Second concussion of the year. May miss the rest of the season. The Saints are 2-7. So
fifth of his NFL career,
yeah.
like same as Tua. Gary.
Yeah, he had one in college as well.
And then
Yeah.
looking at the other receiver, Drake London, he has the hip pointer / oblique injury at the moment. Kevin, that's your guy. He may not play this week, but at least it's nothing that's like he may miss multiple weeks. It's most likely just going to be a one and done if he does miss time, but still bad when you really need a win.
Yeah, I also have a really rough receiving room, and Cedric Tillman's on a bye, so that'll be pretty rough if he doesn't play. But please get healthy, Drake. Please, gonna need him.
Yeah, and then quarterback injury, Caleb Williams. He's on Sam's team. He may not be rostered in most leagues, and Sam may not start him, but he suffered an injury somewhere near the end of Sunday's game and isn't really sure what his playing status is going to be, so that could have some implication for all those receivers. Keenan Allen, blanking on DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze. And then the other one I had is Keon Coleman. He did suffer a really big hit. Went down for a couple of minutes in that game against the Dolphins. if he misses this week, it could be really good for Amari Cooper, so something to watch there. But I don't think Wyatt's going to be starting Keon Coleman outside of that.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
starting AJ
another one
Brown.
to yeah.
Uh,
Another one to mention is CeeDee Lamb. He went down with a shoulder injury there at the end of the Falcons game. He played, but he was definitely like writhing in pain on the sidelines. So we'll see. We'll see what his status is going into this week as well. But that's a pretty notable guy, of course.
Yeah, and then a couple other ones that are somewhat relevant. Zach Moss, season-ending neck injury. He will be done for the rest of the season. Jonathan Taylor went down with a little bit of an ankle injury. I think it's fairly moderate, nothing super severe to worry about. You've got Aaron Jones, who's still kind of suffering that hamstring. Nick Chubb had a knee flare-up that was noted in the Monday injury report. And then aside from that,
Did you say AJ Brown?
No, I didn't. Yeah, the AJ Brown, he went down with a knee. We talked about it during the matchup for Wyatt, but AJ Brown went down with a knee injury for about a quarter and a half, 2 quarters. Came back late in the game, and we talked about it. I did a little bit of research beforehand. He had a scan yesterday, came back all clear, no tear, no strain, only inflammation in the knee, so likely to play this week. But
Yeah, and I just want to throw in Saquon Barkley as well. He has some back tightness thing going on. He was kind of coming on and off the field during the game on Sunday. Finished the game.
Carrying.
Had a huge game. Yeah, he had a phenomenal game. Anyways,
Backwards hurdle was the most nasty play I've
one of
ever
the
watched
craziest
live
things
on
I've ever
TV.
seen. Yeah.
Like,
that was a great play.
For no reason. For no reason,
too.
too. It gained him like 3 extra yards.
4 yards
Yeah.
and my adoration for the rest of my life. Like, the guy's
He's unreal.
Unreal. Yeah, that's it for our injury report. I would like to go in here and take a look at some of the transactions that have happened over the past couple of days now that we've got our Vibe Report guy here and we won't have our Vibe Report in its usual form this week. We'll go in reverse order. Yesterday, trade took place. Actually, today. I processed it. It did happen yesterday. Noah trades Josh Jacobs and Amari Cooper to Sam for Jahmyr Gibbs and Raheem Mostert. This seems like kind of a nothing move for me. Josh Jacobs had been doing middling, and so far this year, Jahmyr Gibbs has been middling to a different extent. He's had some highs and he's had some lows. I think Raheem Mostert is a decent handcuff to have, but you give up Amari Cooper, and just after the Keon Coleman injury too, Amari Cooper's only had 2-3 weeks in the Bills' offense to even get comfortable. I think that there's so much more upside that you've yet to see for Amari Cooper. I mean, this is the guy who put up 3 30-point games last season and a 50-point game. So with a horrible Browns offense. So I think Noah may have given up on him a little too early here, but what do you guys think?
He gets Jahmyr Gibbs in the trade, of course, who I think is probably the best player in the trade, so that's an obvious plus. But then I think Raheem Mostert's kind of a throwaway. So sort of a 2-for-1 in a sense. I think it's pretty fair. I think what your point about Amari Cooper is definitely correct, though.
Yes, and the only other question mark, sorry not to cut you off, Henry, but Noah's receivers are all injured at the moment, and trading away a guy who is likely to play for the next couple of weeks is something to take note of. Nico Collins is maybe coming back from the IR this week, and Mike Evans, I didn't talk about this, but Mike Evans, unlikely to come back. Todd Bowles said yesterday that they're probably going to not let him play until after the bye, so he will miss Week 10, Week 11, which is the bye, and then maybe play Week 12. So losing Amari Cooper, that's one of your startable receivers when you've got 2 guys coming off serious injuries. And go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, Noah probably needs 2 more wins to get into the playoffs, and then he's, making a playoff team. So I think this trade works out for him to
build the playoff team.
Build his best roster possible once everybody's back. And then I think the trade works out for Sam too. It gives him, players right now to help him win. To get there.
I agree. And then actually I'm going to jump out of chronological order here and talk about a different trade that Noah made on Sunday at 12:15 p.m. or something like that. Maybe it was made Saturday night and I processed it on Sunday. But Noah trades with Al. He gives up Terry McLaurin, gives him back to Al. Al had him last year. He wanted that man again. Wyatt had him for most of the season. I think Al got him through a trade at some point. But Noah gives up Terry McLaurin and gets Puka Nacua. Interesting trade here. Puka kind of suffered that injury, and Al said he really didn't want to roster two guys that were on the Rams. And what ended up happening here is kind of the story of how Noah ends up losing games. If he had not... Al called me while we're playing disc golf. To give you a little background, Kevin, Al calls me and texts me multiple times. And finally, I answer the text that he sent through Henry's phone, or Henry called me, is what it was. And Al was blowing up his phone trying to get me to process the trade so that Al could have Terry McLaurin for this Sunday. Mm-hmm. Noah at first said, I don't want it to process till after this week. I want Terry McLaurin this week. And then 5 seconds later fell down to peer pressure and said, you know what, it doesn't matter, just process it through. And so I immediately pushed it through. If Noah had stood his ground and kind of argued that he did not want it to be pushed through until after, Noah would have won this week. Terry McLaurin puts up like 25 points. Puka only puts up a handful before he gets tossed for throwing a punch. And
I will say, though, if you're going to accept the trade, you have to be prepared that
for it to go through.
It should go through. Yeah. I think it should go through before the week starts.
So
like if there's any pending trades, at,
the rule is whenever you post the trade, I will process it before the next game starts, unless both people tell me that they want it held.
Makes sense. And at that point you should just hold off on the trade. But yeah, I mean, yes, that makes sense.
Just wanted to point that out, that maybe another mishap for Noah, that he could have won the week. Two ways that he could have won the week, starting the right quarterback or not making the trade, but c'est la vie. And then our last transaction of the week this week, Coach Diggs and the fellas, he pulls off a little sneaky here. He trades away Kareem Hunt and Keenan Allen to Baby Want Milky in exchange for David Montgomery. I really like this trade for Eli. He gives up Kareem Hunt, who has been awesome for him, maybe waiver wire pickup of the year. Unfortunately, it didn't get as much attention in this league because it was the 0-9 team who has him, so not really showing out in a good way on a good team, but has really helped Eli put up some respectable scores and probably
he's kept them off the beer several times.
So gives up him with Pacheco slated to come back in the next couple of weeks, and Keenan Allen, who's been a disappointment, a trade acquisition for me at some point this season. Gets David Montgomery, who I believe is running back 14, will be a solid performer to combine with James Conner. Of course, Eli still has some wide receiver concerns after the Stephon Diggs for Marv trade, but it is what it is. You're going to have concerns about your roster when you're 0-9, but I do like this trade overall. I think Charlie's team gets worse, and he continues to fall down in at least my mental standings because of his roster moves.
Well, yeah, we'll see too if if Pacheco is ever going to come back. I don't know what the update is on him, but obviously if he returns and he's still good and healthy, Kareem Hunt is going to be, kicked to the curb. He won't even be a startable fantasy asset. So
he'll go back to the couch.
TBD whether or not Pacheco is back this season. That's still to be seen, but at least for the fantasy season, that is. He should be back for the NFL playoffs, but obviously that does not matter for us.
But yeah, that'll about do it for us. I do want to make one quick note about the competitiveness of the league to this point. As we mentioned earlier in the pod, we have 4 guys currently sitting at 6-3, only 1 at 5-4, and then we have 3 guys at 4-5. So 8 people in that two game differential spot right there. Of course, you have Tal, the lone gunman, at 7-2 atop the leaderboard, and then we have Kevin, Bennett, and Eli at 3-6 and 0-9 respectively. But really competitive, and this is going to come down to the wire to determine who gets pretty much playoff spots 2 through 7. I did not think it was going to be this competitive after week 4 or 5. I saw we had one guy, Charlie, who was running away with it, at least it seemed. And then we had a couple of guys with Noah and Tal who were putting up good scores every week and had a really high win percentage. But we've seen a couple of teams turn it around, notably Wyatt and Alex. And, Noah, Charlie kind of falter a little bit, and Sam falter quite heavily. And all in all, the standings are very close as we have 5 weeks left in the regular season, fellas.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah, I
be
would
super
still
fun.
say.
The main buys are still coming up for a lot of good teams, and every week is win now. So the league is really fun at this point.
Yeah, for sure. It's still 11 of like the top 11 teams still have a very realistic chance to make the playoffs. I know it's kind of rough. I mean, I say that as I'm sitting as at the lower end of the spectrum, but I mean, if I can string together some wins, it's anybody's game still. So it's still very competitive, and I'm excited for the end here as we kind of encroach on week 15.
Yeah, and technically Eli still has a percentage to make the playoffs, but as you will see before his beer chug this week, he has been eliminated for all intents and purposes from playoff contention.
Mentally.
I'll go ahead, mentally and literally, not mathematically, but literally, yes. Kevin, I was talking to Eli. I was talking to Henry and Eli about this before Eli went to France. I think for every time somebody... Oh, no, I was talking to Noah and Henry about this on Sunday. That's what it was. Before somebody gets... when somebody gets eliminated from playoff contention, every time it happens, I'm going to use, like, a different fatality from Mortal Kombat and paste their team's profile picture over the guy who gets killed and have, like, eliminated.
That's good stuff. That'll be funny.
All right. Well, that about does it for us here on your Behind the Lines Week 9 review. I wish you all luck in Week 10, except for Bennett, obviously. I hope to push you down a little bit further in the standings and get back to even and help secure my potential of what could be a playoff run.
Yeah, me and Kevin have a little bit of I'll call it a rivalry.
Some animosity.
It's one, but yeah, I hate you.
Yeah, hey, this is a rematch of the playoffs last
Of epic
year.
proportions.
Oh, yeah.
Won.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the first time we played since then. So
If you if all of the players on my fantasy team get obliterated this week, then we know what happens.
oh yeah, dude, especially if Jonathan Taylor puts up a stinker, that'll not even just because of injury. If he just has a bad week, I will be rejoicing at the idea of it. But
that would be just terrible.
Best luck to everybody this week, guys, and talk to you next week.
See you next week, fellas.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Cheers.